All right, recording started, I believe. All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining the second Chandigarh VMUG virtual event. And I really appreciate your presence here. And thanks a lot for those who attended the previous session as well. And I can see a lot of familiar faces here. My name is Prateek, and I'm your host for today's session. And I have Prasanna and Akshay with me, along with a lot of other familiar faces. But yeah, Prasanna is my co-leader here, and we have a VMware resource here. His name is Akshay Kalia. So at any stage you need to know or you want to ask anything, please use the chat window, and one of us will respond to your query there. So before we go ahead,
Okay, Manish.
let me quickly share the agenda for today. We'll do the quick introduction of VMUG leaders and the speaker, and then we'll ask our speaker, who is Pawan Naidu, to make us aware about the multi-cloud journey with VMware. So he has a very uh, uh, big portfolio here, has vast knowledge on a lot of VMware products, but this time we have requested him to hold his horses around VRA, which is a multi-cloud product from VMware. And then we'll do a quick Q&A, and we'll get some latest news from Akshay Kalia. And now, as we have got Jatin Purohit from Pune, we'll ask him as well to give us some more updates on VMware Explore. He attended VMware Explore, I think, US this time, so we'll do that. And he also has some news for VMUG community around the India UserCon, and I'll make an announcement regarding my leader summit, which is happening this December. So this is the agenda for today, and some housekeeping rules. You can mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Would really appreciate that. And if you have any questions around to for me, for any VMUG leader or for Pawan itself, feel free to put your queries in a Q&A section, and one of us will answer that later. And if you haven't registered for this event, I would request you all to do the registration. Link is here, and the registered candidates will get something today. Even last time we shared a VMUG Advantage Pass with someone. He's here, but we'll announce his name at the end of the session. But registration link is here. So if you're interested to have this VMUG Advantage Pass, feel free to register yourself, and we'll proceed from there. Yeah, again, I mean, I have Prasanna and Akshay with me. So we are the co-leaders. And before we start the session, I just want to do a brief on the previous session. Like what we did in the previous session was like, we discussed about what's VMUG, what's VMware, and why we started this new chapter in Chandigarh. There are already like few chapters happening in Pune, New Delhi, few other parts of India, but why we started this chapter. So if you're keen to know uh, like why we have taken this step, I would request you to watch the previous session. It's on YouTube. You just have to say VMUG Chandigarh and you will find that session. And we also discussed VMware's journey from GSX to vSphere 7 and other integrated products. And and we also touched base on like how you can start your journey with VMware, with VMUG, and how you can learn all that skills from hands-on labs and things like that. And again, I mean, agenda for today, like the main topic for today is the multi-cloud journey with VMware. And I understand that it's quite early to talk about multi-cloud journey at this stage in the second session of uh, VMUG Chandigarh, but that something is the demand for today's world. And so now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to someone very special. I've worked with him, and he's Pawan Naidu, currently working as a senior consultant multi-cloud with VMware. And in his tenure with VMware, he has worked with various premier support customers, and he's carrying a vast experience on a lot of other on a lot of other VMware products. But again, for today's session, we have requested him to limit himself to explain us the multi-cloud journey, why everyone's behind the multi-cloud. And I'm sure this session will be really, really helpful for those who have knowledge around other VMware products, and they are planning to take their journey ahead. And someone will be thinking that, hey, okay, let's learn NSX, let's learn something on AWS, Azure, Google, or some other clouds. But this session will be really helpful for those who are planning to build their journey. So you might have a environment wherein you have, let's say, a few ESXi hosts and vCenter servers, or you might have an environment with an existing vSphere. You have vCloud Director, have NSX, VROPS, and like all other products from VMware, vRealize Orchestrator, and you're doing a bit of Kubernetes there. But again, I mean, now there's a need wherein administrators, architects are behind multi-cloud. They want to take their journey ahead and they want to do things around multi-cloud. So in today's session, we'll learn from Pawan, like why everyone's behind multi-cloud and how best we can be on this journey with VMware, with this product, VRA. And now, without further ado, I mean, don't want to say too much the about the topic here, but Pawan, please take the stage and yeah, you can share your screen if you want, but yeah, would request you to take the lead from here. Pawan.
Thank you, Prateek. And I hope I'm audible to everyone. Can you just get a confirmation?
Yep.
All right.
All good.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. Thanks, Prateek, Akshay, PPK, to give me an opportunity to speak in VMUG. Very excited, and I hope that this is not the only session where I'm taking part. I should be able to contribute more and be part of this larger community. Um, So quick introduction about myself. Those who don't know me, Pawan Naidu, been with VMware for 9.5 years. Joined in the year 2013. Um, Majority of my time was with VMware support, and within VMware support, majority of my time spent was with Premier support, where we were serving the mission critical and business critical customers. We had that account based relationship model where we were working as a trusted advisor for the customer from VMware, right? So it was an amazing journey, and it's been a year. I moved into consulting within VMware. So currently, I'm working as a senior consultant in the multi-cloud franchisee in Worldwide Consulting Center. And my day out responsibilities are like, I take care of customers' use cases based on the products. And based on the use cases, like we conduct various workshops for them. I do consulting for global customers as well on VLI Suite. That's my focus area. At this point of time, there's a lot of naming convention changes that you might have seen. The latest announcements from VMware Explore. So a lot of naming convention changes that we could see that VRA became VMware area automation, right? So like that, you'll see a lot of changes. And I know that there's a lot of excitement about after this VMware Explore event to know more about it. And in today's session, we would limit our discussion to VRA and as a multi-cloud product from VMware, and how exactly VRA is driving that multi-cloud journey is something that we would concentrate into, right? But yeah, as and when we get more demand coming from the community, we would be able to plan something for VMware area automation as well. All right, so let me just go ahead and quickly share my screen. Give me a quick minute here. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. All right. So the agenda for today is multi-cloud journey with VMware. We would be concentrating more onto VRA and how exactly VRA as a solution is enabling us with that multi-cloud journey, right? So the agenda for today, we will have a quick introduction about cloud computing. I know this is something that is very common at this point of time, and everyone would be aware of this, but just for the interest of everyone, right? So whomsoever is new to the um, industry and they would like to start their journey with cloud and they would like to understand about cloud computing. So I will just take a few minutes to get an overview about cloud computing, not uh, to deep dive into the cloud computing part. Once we are done with that, we would start with the VRA discussion. So we'll have a brief overview about the components of VRA, and the version is 8.x that we would be concentrating into. We would get to know about what are the components of VRA deployment and how exactly we understand. We'll go ahead and get some understanding of these individual components, their roles, and how exactly they integrate with each other. Once we're done with that, we would get into a simulation demo, basically to understand how this deployment is going to work. Because if you do an actual deployment, it's going to take at least 3.5 or 4 hours, depending on your infrastructure. So we'll do a simulation, which would be easy to conduct. And of course, this is something that is readily available for everyone who would like to just do some simulations. And finally, once we're done with the product deployment, we'll go ahead and see how to configure VRA for consumption. And then we'll just take a look at the UI, understand a broader perspective of VRA use cases. And if you have some time, of course, we'll do some Q&A as well. All right. So if you talk about cloud computing, what exactly is cloud computing, right? So it is nothing but delivery of the computing services. Let it be a virtual machine, storage, database, your networking, software, analytics, over the internet, right? Any device, anywhere, and that is where the cloud computing comes into picture, right? Now, this is a very broader perspective of defining cloud computing. But when you get into the different types of cloud computing, the different services offered by cloud computing, they differ from vendor to vendor, and it depends on your use cases, the application requirement, and based on that, you would prefer going back to a particular cloud provider, right? So let's start with some discussion on the cloud services model, right? What are the different types of services offered by these cloud providers, right? So at the very bottom of the pyramid, what we see is infrastructure as a service. And this is something where you are not kind of you're going to a pay-as-you-go model, right? Pay-as-you-go model where you're not concerned, or you're not administrating the environment, but again, you're just consuming the compute resources offered by the cloud provider, right? Some of the areas where infrastructure and the network architects would prefer infrastructure as a service, and this could be private or public as well. We go ahead and have some more discussion on that. The second one in the pyramid is platform as a service, where you're not only getting your compute resources, but your operating system and the application stack. So you are actually concentrating onto your use cases as an application developer. You don't want to invest a lot of time investing for the compute resources, the operating system, and the application stack development, and doing a lot of testing, right? So you are only responsible for the application and a bit of configuration that you're managing out there. And finally, software as a service, which is something where you're just consuming a web application over the internet. And VRA Cloud is an example of software as a service, right? The SaaS platform, which is also a consumption-based model. And these are the three, different types of services that is offered by most of the cloud providers, right? So finally, the types of cloud models that we have widely at this point of time, right? So we start with our private cloud, which is where you are responsible in an organization. The organization is going to be responsible for maintaining, administrating, and patching not only the operating system stack, but again, the underlying hardware infrastructure, the networking stack, everything would be managed. The storage stack, everything would be managed
by the organization itself. So that is something that we call as a private cloud, your on-premise data center or a remote data center, which is managed by your organization. That would be considered as a private cloud. On the other side, the public cloud is something where we are consuming services from Google, VMware Cloud, and then again, VMware, and you have AWS and other cloud providers. And this is something that is kind of being used at this point of time. But the hybrid cloud is a combination of private and public, right? So basically, you're extending your private cloud and providing that capability onto a public cloud, and you would have a connectivity between the private and the public cloud. An example of hybrid cloud is VMware Cloud on AWS, right? And then you have many more partners at this point of time with VMware who are providing this kind of capability, right? So these are the three major buckets in which we kind of segregate the cloud deployment models, right? Now, with that said, what do we have from VMware to offer our customers with this multi-cloud journey, right? So I'm going to go ahead and talk briefly about VRA before we get into the components of VRA for deployment, right? So VRA as a product, it's there for some time, and if you talk about version 7.x, and currently, we are running on version 8.9 at this point of time. So if you compare these two products, the architecture is completely different. Version 7.x was a distributed architecture, which was scattered with some of the appliances from VMware, and again, Windows dependencies was there, right? So it was not a scalable model, and we had a lot of challenges in terms of upgrading, patching, maintaining the lifecycle. And that is where, if you talk about VRA 8, this is something that is derived from the architecture of VRA Cloud. So VMware started with VRA Cloud first, in version 8 when we talk about. So VRA Cloud was there for some time, and then the same architecture has been derived into the on-premise, and that is what we call it VRA, right? Realize automation. So there are two flavors or two different types of models that we have for VRA. The first one is the SaaS subscription, right? Which is where you're not responsible for maintaining the lifecycle of the product. You're just consuming it. You're just maintaining your deployments, right? The other one, which is on-premise, is something where you're responsible for installing, maintaining, patching the complete Realize suite, right? Or whatever product that you're consuming from the bucket, right? So that is the basic difference between the on-premise and the SaaS version. And at this point of time, you're talking about VMware Area Automation, which is a true multi-cloud product, is what has been announced. And there are a lot of features that Area Automation is providing, which is helpful for customers who has footprint in multiple cloud platform, and they would like to break the silos, right? And this is something that we can go ahead and discuss in more details, but this is in continuation to VRA. So if you talk about, can we start with VMware Area Automation? The answer is yes, we can go ahead and do that. But again, if you have a good understanding about VRA, it would become very easy for you to differentiate and add some of the components which would make Area Automation easier to consume. And that's where we would like to stick to VRA at this point of time and then proceed further. All right, so let's go ahead and discuss some of the components of VRA for deployment, right? So what you see is there are 4 components, but primarily we are focusing on the 3 major components that creates a VRA environment. The first one, VMware Cloud Foundation, is not a necessity, right? I mean, this is something that's going to add value because of the automation and the policies that it has. So VMware Cloud Foundation is the automated way of deploying your infrastructure, right? So basically your SDDC, your vSphere, your networking platform, which is NSX, and your storage, which is vSAN. All of these 3 things are integrated, and it is deployed in a automated way wherein it is driven by policies. So that is where we are adding a lot of value because this is derived from VMware validated solution. So this is the best way you can go ahead and deploy an infrastructure which is free from human errors, right? So that is where we are concentrating into VMware Cloud Foundation. Now, if you have VMware Cloud Foundation in your stack and your journey towards VLI Suite becomes much easier, right? Because you have the power of automation that you can consume and you can take the advantage in a lot of places during the deployment and during the consumption of your VLI Suite products. But let's say you do not have VMware Cloud Foundation, we can still proceed further with our automation journey without VCF. And that is where 3 products onto the right comes into picture, right? So if you want to consume VRA 8 on-premise, this is what we are discussing, the on-premise model of the deployment, because SaaS is, again, we need not to know all these, right? We can simply consume the service after taking and we are good to go, right? But you have the on-premise environment, that is where we need to have an understanding of these components. So the first component is VLI Suite Lifecycle Manager. In short, we call it VRLCM, right? And this is not a new product that we have launched with VRA 8. It was there in version 7.6 as well. The reason why VRLCM was introduced is the fact that administrators was putting a lot of effort, a lot of hours were spent on upgrading and patching and maintaining the life cycle of your VRA appliance, the environment itself, right? Since it's a distributed component, a lot of Windows dependencies, there were a lot of issues with the upgrade, and handling those issues manually was a nightmare, right? And that is where VRLCM was being consumed at that point of time. And now it is a mandatory component if you want to consume VRA 8, right? So in a nutshell, it does installation, maintenance, like patching, upgrading, your marketplace, your configuration management, your config management. All these things can be dealt by VRLCM itself. So that's the first product that you deploy. It's a Photon OS appliance, and Photon OS is a common operating system, default operating system that we consume at this point in time in most of our VMware products, right? The second component is your identity manager, right? So previously, if you talk about version 7.6, right, identity manager was an inbuilt service into VRA itself, right? But now it is consumed as a separate appliance, right? Because we're talking about high availability model. So this is another appliance that we have. The responsibility of your identity manager, as the name suggests, it's for authorization and authentication, right? So you connect your Active Directory or LDAP sources, or if you have multi-factor authentication, you can still go ahead and configure the MFA along with VMware Identity Manager, right? And finally, you have your VRA appliance. And this is, again, a Photon OS appliance. And the architecture of VRA 8 is based on Docker Kubernetes. So basically, the Docker images for the services are being consumed and they are maintained by the Kubernetes, right? So if you have an understanding of Docker and Kubernetes, it becomes very easy for you to troubleshoot or manage your VRA. But in case you do not have knowledge about these products as well, you would be able to consume VRA as a cloud administrator. So that should not be a problem, right? We'll go ahead and touch base on these products in some more details, but let me know if there is any question that I can answer at this point of time. I've been speaking for some time, so I just want to take a pause and see if there is any question that you guys have that I can answer.
So just a quick one here, Pawan. I mean, you said there are 2 ways we can deploy VRA. One is on-prem, other one is cloud. So when it comes to cloud, do we have to worry about these installation and like how we how okay. All right.
So basically, if you talk about the SaaS subscription model, it is maintained by VMware. So basically, you get a subscription. You go for a subscription for VLI Suite or whatever product that you want to go ahead and consume from the stack, right? And once you get your subscription ID, you just consume that and you attach your endpoints or the cloud accounts where you want to deploy. So let's say you have private data center where you would like to deploy. You have some footprint onto some of the cloud instances that you have, and you want to go ahead and use VRA to go ahead and do the deployment of your workload across these different cloud accounts, right? So you simply go ahead and attach your cloud accounts and you start consuming it. But you're not worried about patching, maintaining the life cycle, and worried about any kind of downtime because that is maintained by VMware. Yeah.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
One quick question. When you say
Yes.
SaaS, is it hosted by VMware or
Mhm.
on some public cloud and we consume as any other SaaS solution, be it like Salesforce or anything, or um, do we have to provision in our own private virtual private cloud or something?
So if you talk about the consumption, how exactly the SaaS model is being consumed, where exactly it is deployed is what your question is,
Yes.
or okay. So it is, VMware cloud environment. So it could be our partner where we can go ahead and consume it, or it could be VMware data center itself where we can go ahead and consume this. But again, the life cycle would be maintained by VMware. And I believe 99.9%, I would say, that's the kind of commitment that you have with respect to the downtime that you can expect
Okay.
with the SaaS subscription model.
All right. And all the artifacts or Terraform outputs or whatever configuration we
everything
have
would remain the same. Everything would remain the same. However, obviously, right, if you talk about SaaS and subscription model, you'd be getting a lot of benefits, right? A lot of perks since you're the early consumer. So basically, in terms of the patching cycle, the update cycle, the cloud pro, version would get the first release, right? That's the first thing. And again, any feature that is getting launched would be launched first onto the SaaS model, and then there'll be a version for the on-premise, right? Consumption would remain the same. There would not be any difference in terms of how exactly we are consuming multiple integrations at this point of time. But again, you have perks that you get with SaaS. But apart from that, both the models, the SaaS or the on-prem version, would do a similar job, right? One is coming with a lot of administration efforts. The other one is, you don't have to manage anything. You're simply consuming it from day one, right? So your go-to-market value would become much easier because you want to start your automation journey and you want to see some progress right away, right? So I would suggest to go for the cloud instance because the moment is ready, you get the subscription and you start rolling out things.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right.
And I think Pawan, simulation, what you'll be doing at the end, that will make things more clear.
Absolutely.
Once we'll see the UI.
Sure, absolutely. I'll go ahead and take you there in some time. We'll go ahead and quickly finish a few of the slides here, like 2 of them, and then we'll quickly go back for a demo. That shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
All right, now we're just double clicking on the first component, which is VLI Suite Lifecycle Manager, right? So as you can see, I was just talking about the complete lifecycle would be maintained by VRLCM. So we're starting from the installation itself. So your installation, your upgrade, your patching, your marketplace appliances that you want to go ahead and configure, your health monitoring, your content management. If you have Git, Bitbucket, and you want to go ahead and sync some of the content from there, like cloud templates or any of the configuration files that you have there, you can go ahead and sync them. Your configuration management, like the root passwords, the certificate management, any kind of day-to operations that you want to go ahead and do, scale out, horizontal, right? Basically, the vertical scale out is something that you can go ahead and do with LCM, and horizontal scale out as well. That shouldn't be a problem. So this is something that we are preferring at this point of time, and VRLCM is going to go ahead and talk to VRA to get the job done, right? So it is using some of the ports for communication. We are using port 22, right? In some of the organization, if you say that port 22, we cannot keep it open because it's a security breach or a risk, I mean, that is something that you have to take it as exception because it's the same subnet where we would be expecting all these components deployed, right? So it is a requirement. It is you must have VRLCM if you want to go ahead and consume VRA. Right. So that's the first component that we have. The second one is VRA itself. Now, again, we see some new services out here, and architecture on the left and some of the definition on the right. Don't be worried, don't get confused with this. I'll go ahead and make it simple for you, right? So as I mentioned, VRA is a multi-cloud solution, right? So when you talk about where exactly you can run your workload, you can consume your private cloud, your private data centers. If you have a hybrid cloud like VMware, VMC, and AWS, or any other cloud provider which is partnered with VMware, that gives you a hybrid cloud instance where you can go ahead and deploy your workload. And obviously, the public cloud vendors are also supported. So if you want to have a cloud agnostic deployment, which is which can be consumed by any of these cloud, VRA can achieve that, right? You will have a single template, a cloud template, which can be consumed by private cloud, hybrid cloud, or public cloud, right? So that kind of a journey is possible with VRA as a solution, right? Which is truly multi-cloud enabled at this point of time, right? Now, if I talk about the architecture, as you could see, we have VRLCM and Identity Manager. These are the two mandatory components that are sitting here, and then VRA appliance itself. And what we see is some of the services that we would be consuming, and these are individual services with different set of response use cases that we would go ahead and choose from, right? So let's go ahead and understand these services a little bit better than what we could see from the definition itself, right? So starting from the cloud assembly, and you would see the similar set of services, the same set of services for VRA SaaS version as well. So there's no difference in the naming convention when it comes to VRA 8, right? But when we talk about area automation, the naming convention of these services have also changed, right? So we'll connect on that later, but let's start with cloud assembly, right? So don't go by the definition. If you want to understand cloud assembly as a cloud administrator, right, you would be spending or you'd be interacting with this service for most of your time, right? So any kind of testing, deployment, integration, configuration, anything that you want to go ahead and do as a cloud administrator, you would be consuming cloud assembly as a service, right? So that's the first one. Once your testing is done and once your deployment is ready and you want to go ahead and roll it out for the end users. So basically, you would like to give a self-service portal kind of experience where the end users can log in and they can consume the services and they can go through the deployment wizard, right? Without the administrator or cloud admin coming into picture, right? And that is where service broker comes into picture. So service broker is not only accepting the content that is coming from VRA, which is their cloud templates, right? But again, we are talking about other VMware, AWS CloudFormation template. You have some VRO workflows. You have some code stream pipeline. You can aggregate all those native content. And what service broker allows you to do is add some policies, add some approval and day to action control that is given on top of your deployment. So we'll go ahead and talk about this in some more details. But again, service broker is going to aggregate the content from multiple platforms that I've just told you, like AWS CloudFormation template, orchestrator, your cloud assembly blueprints, right? And then give you the similar experience no matter where this aggregation is coming from, right? The third service out here is CodeStream. So if you want to go ahead and implement CI/CD pipelines, basically this is preferred for software testing. If you want to go ahead and make sure that as soon as a new code is committed to a particular branch, you want to go ahead and fork an instance and proceed further with executing a list of pipelines to go ahead and do the build and run your tests, right? And that should be done in an automated fashion. CodeStream is the go-to service that you would be consuming out here. And finally, we have vRealize Orchestrator. I mean, this is not a new service that we have here. It's been there for a decade now. It is consumed in multiple flavors. With VRA 8, it is being consumed as a pod, which is running within VRA appliance itself. right? But again, this can be consumed as a standalone appliance, right? It can also be consumed as a SaaS subscription model, right? So there are multiple flavors in which we can consume it. For on-premise, it'll be a pod running within VRA appliance itself, right? And why do we prefer Orchestrator as a tool for automation? Obviously, it is helping us to go ahead and develop the workflows, actions that we can consume in multiple runtime instances like JavaScript, Python, Node.js, Power CLI. But again, the reason why customers prefer Orchestrator is the rich set of plugin interface that VRO has, right? So the integration is easy, and we get a lot of out-of-the-box workflows with the integration of the plugins that we have in VRO, and that is where you're not kind of driving everything from scratch. You have a model which you can modify based on your requirement, right? And that is where Orchestrator is being consumed. In VRA, we also have ABX, right? Action-based extensibility, which people kind of confuse between these two, right? But again, in our upcoming sessions, we'll see how we can go ahead and talk more about ABX as well, right? And at the bottom, what you see is LCM and Identity Manager, which we have already discussed. So I'm going to take a pause here and check if there is any questions with respect to these services or the multi-cloud journey that we were talking about. If not, then we would switch back to the UI, just take a look at these services and then come back. What do you think? All right.
There's a question in chat. So while performing upgrades, are all these components updated at the same time, or is there any sequence for performing upgrades?
All right, Puneet, to answer that question, there is a sequence that we have for the upgrade, right? And that is handled by LCM. So what we do is we go ahead and start our upgrade journey with, obviously, there'll be some maintenance window that you need to go ahead and acquire. You go ahead and do the patching of individual components. So you start from your via the VRLCM appliance itself, because VRLCM is the backbone for everything, right? So you need to make sure that VRLCM is compatible first before you go ahead and upgrade anything else, right? So once you upgrade, you go ahead and upgrade to LCM first, right? Or if you're just doing a patching for the rest of the product, like VIDM and VRA, right? You need to make sure that the destination version of VIDM and your VRA is compatible with LCM. If not, then you first upgrade your LCM and then proceed further with VIDM and finally your VRA. Right? Does that answer your question, Puneet? Okay, so all right. Let me just go ahead and show you the LCM interface first before we proceed further. All right, I'm using 8.6.2 instance. It's not the latest 8.9 at this point of time. But if you take a look at this, as soon as you log into LCM, the first thing what I would show you is the list of products supported by LCM. So Puneet, you can come back here and you can take a look if you're going to a destination version of VR and VIDM. Is it compatible? Is it there in the list of supported products by this LCM or not? It's something that you can take a look. So as I said, right, it handles the complete vRealize suite, and VRA and VIDM is some of the product that we are discussing at this point of time, but it's not limited to this. It supports the complete vRealize suite, which includes cloud proxy, extensibility proxy, log insight, network insight, vRealize operations, and cloud instances. Right? And it also tells you what version of these individual products are supported by this LCM. All right. Now, talking about LCM, as I mentioned, it is used for deployment, installation, patching, upgrading, configuration management, and things like that. So if I just take you back to my environment, I have multiple containers that you have. These are logical containers that are, you can consider them as folders that we have here. So the first one, what you see, the global environment. And this global environment is nothing but your VIDM. right? So your VIDM, your identity manager, is a single instance. It could be a single node or a cluster, but it cannot be, one LCM cannot have more than one VIDM instance. It could be a cluster or a single node, doesn't matter, but you cannot have more than one VIDM integrated with LCM. But you can have multiple VR instances and other realized suite products. That should not be a problem. All right. And if I talk about these products, I can just go ahead and maintain, as I mentioned, I can do a vertical scale up, I can add components, I can do configuration management of any deployed products. All right. Now, with that, I'll go back to VRA interface. I'm just doing the login for the first time. Let's say you deploy and you're just doing the first login. You would be coming to a landing page where you need to go ahead and do the quick config, quick start. And basically, these are the services that I was talking about, like Cloud Assembly, the Code Stream Orchestrator, and Service Broker. Basically, these are the services that you would be consuming most of the time. Salt Stack Config is something that you would have to configure for your configuration management. And then Quick Start and VRA Migration Assistant is something that you have some use cases to use them, right? So this is the interface, how it looks like, right? I'm going to switch back to the PPT once again, and we would go ahead and do the deployment simulation in some time. Okay, let me just switch back here. All right, finally, we're just talking about Identity Manager. So as I mentioned, Identity Manager, you're just connecting your LDAP, your Active Directory sources for authentication, right? Now, what Identity Manager does, we go ahead and cache the metadata of these user and groups, right? And why do we do that is to make sure that the logins are faster, right? Obviously, as soon as you enter the username and password, your authentication would happen at your destination, which is AD or LDAP, right? But once the authentication is done, the authorization is something that would be done by individual products, right? So let's say that you're logging into VRA using your Active Directory account, and you enter the right username and password. The authentication is done through Active Directory, and once we have the token, we go ahead and check in VRA what is the privilege that is given to your account or the membership of your group, and based on that, you'd be given the privileges to log into VRA, right? So that is what we are consuming the Identity Manager for. And again, once we talk about the topology, we'll discuss more about what are the different topologies that we have for the deployment. All right, so let's understand the topology first, and then we'll go back to the demo because it'll be easy for you to consume it. So basically, we are talking about two different topologies or the architecture that we have for deployment. The first one on the left is a small deployment that you see. So what you see out here is three different components: VR LCM, IDM, and your realized automation appliance. But what you could see out here, there is no high availability. So basically, this is not preferred for a production environment where you are kind of deploying workload for your end users. And this is basically preferred for a testing or a development phase. And you're not worried about the appliances going down, right? The user is connecting to VIDM or the VRA appliance over port 443. And as I told you that VRLCM is maintaining the life cycle of these appliances using port 22 for communication, right? So that port must be open. So you need to go ahead and take an exception or talk to your security team that we need to take an exception in case there is a policy. On the right side, what we see is there is a high availability implementation. So what we're trying to secure at this point of time is our VIDM instances. So we got 3 instances of VIDM, and we also got 3 instances of VRA. Now, if you ask me, can I extend this 3 instance to a 4 instance or a 5 instance? The answer is no, right? This is the architecture of a high availability. Now, you might wonder, why are we not protecting LCM? Because LCM is managing everything. What if the LCM goes down? If LCM is down, you need to go ahead and troubleshoot and find out what's happening with LCM, obviously. But if LCM goes down, your VRA or VIDM would not stop. Your lifecycle operations would still run, But your day-to-day operations, if you want to go ahead and do any kind of configuration change, patching, upgrading, all those good things, what you're trying to do with LCM would not be available. But would it impact your production? The answer is no. All right. Now, how exactly we are maintaining the cluster? Again, we are using for VIDM, we are using Postgres replication. So as a database, as database instance, we are consuming vPostgres instance of the database in VIDM instances, right? So we have that Postgres replication that happens synchronously in all the three appliances, right? And there's a front-end load balancer that we need to go ahead and configure, right? So user communication would hit the load balancer and then would be distributed across all these three nodes, right, for authentication. And the same thing goes for VRA as well. But again, in VRA, how are we maintaining the high availability? We have the Kubernetes cluster, right? And when we do a deployment, the Kubernetes cluster gets established accordingly across these three nodes. So it's highly available, right? So you would not see, as soon as the service goes down, you'll be able to see that the other node is able to serve that particular service. So that should not be a problem, right? So if you start with a small architecture, you can go back to the high availability model, right? So your transition from a small to the large deployment is pretty much possible at any point of time. But the cut down is not something that is required or preferred. So if you have a distributed environment, you want to scale it down to single node, not supported. All right, I'm taking a pause before we go back to the demo. Let me know if there is any question.
Hey, Pawan, this is Ravi. Just one question.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do a high available deployment? It's been a while working on VRA, but then can I put like the appliance 1 in site A and then appliance 2 in site B, something like that, just to have a site level resiliency?
So not preferred if you talk about from the architecture point of view, because routable traffic is not something because you need to work on the latency factor as well. And if you talk about multiple sites and the replication goes down and site level redundancy goes down from the networking point of view, it's going to break down your appliances, and obviously the intent what you have would not be served. So how exactly we would prefer this to be consumed as a single site? So if you want to go ahead and do a multi-site, VRA is not a solution. So what you can do is you can go along with VCF. So if you have a VCF instance with a multi-cloud, multi-site environment, you can go ahead and do a complete failover. That is something that you could go ahead and do with VCF, but multi-site level deployment is not supported for this.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a very good question from the deployment or architecture perspective, Ravi. All right, so let me just go ahead and do a demo, and I'm going to go to core.vmware.com. All right, now, as I said, VCF is not a mandatory component, but out here we'd be consuming VCF, but again, it is only to go ahead and deploy LCM. Once our LCM is ready, LCM is going to go ahead and take care of the deployment of the rest of the products, right? So VRA or VCF is not trying to go ahead and do something which is already done by LCM. So LCF maintains the life cycle. VCF would give it to LCM once VCF deploys LCM, and that is what we'll see. So we'll click on VMware Cloud Foundation, and you can do this. Once you have this recording, you can do this just to get familiar. And this is available for everyone. There's no login required, right? So I'll go back to using the VLI suite on VMware Cloud Foundation. And we'll start with our first appliance, which is deploying the LCM, right, using VCF. So right now we are logged into the SDDC manager. This is the appliance or the interface or the UI that we have for VCF. Our focus area is not VCF. So I'm going to click on bundle download, bundle management. Basically, you'll be able to sync all. This is where the automation comes into picture, right? You're downloading all the ISOs out here, right? The OVA appliances are getting downloaded at this point of time out here. Let me go to dashboard and click on vRealize Suite. As you can see that, this is empty at this point of time, and we are deploying our first product, which is LCM. I hit the deploy button, and then I would provide some of the basic information about the deployment, basically your network, your subnet mask, your gateway, NTP, and DNS. Proceed further with VRLCM, FQDN, the IP address, and the password. And you do the deployment, right? So VCF is deploying your first product, which is LCM. And the endpoint is one of the vCenter, which is already there, which is aware by SDDC manager, and we can go ahead and use that particular instance for the deployment, right? That is called management domain, right? So the deployment would not be this quick, but this is just a simulation. So we have our LCM deployed, and the second component that we go ahead and deploy is Workspace ONE, which is your VIDM. The moment I click on Workspace ONE, VCF has offloaded the deployment to Lifecycle Manager, right? And remember, as I said, that we can have only one instance of VIDM connected to a VRLCM instance, right? So we'll just go ahead and log in. And now we are starting from scratch. The first product that we deploy in LCM is VIDM. So what are some of the prerequisites that you go ahead and do, we need to achieve for deploying through LCM, right? The first thing what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create or import the certificate. Since we are doing a 3-node deployment, so we need to make sure that all the 3 FQDNs, the DNS names are there in the SAN entry of the certificate, right? And that is where we are importing a certificate which is having a SAN name defined for all the 3 nodes. So let's go ahead and import the certificate. All right, the next one is licensing, right? So we'll go ahead and consume the license, whatever license that we have for VRealize Suite. Do the validation of the license and add it. Finally, we would go ahead and create some password that we would be consuming, because as I mentioned, the configuration management would be done by LCM. So LCM should know what is the root password, what is the the admin password for your VIDM appliance. And all this information is available in our documentation. So you don't have to worry about all this. You should be able to read the documentation and understand the requirement for this. All right, so we're done with the requirement. We have our certificate ready. We have our license and the password created. So we'll go ahead and start the deployment. What we're taking a look at this point of time is if our binaries are in sync or not. So we're looking good out here. Binaries are sync. Let's proceed further with the deployment. The binaries are good. We'll be able to go ahead and do the deployment of LCM. The VIDM. As I mentioned, it's a global environment, so we'll not be able to go ahead and make any changes out there using our password. Selecting our data center. Selecting a cluster of 3 nodes, and that's the only instance that we have. Terms and conditions. Select our certificate. Proceed further with our deployment. So this is something that is coming from LCM itself. And then you provide the details for all the 3 nodes of your IDM instance. So config admin is the account that you're configuring for the first time. You can change the username to anything else. Should not be a problem. This is the virtual IP of the load balancer. This is the database IP. These are 2 different IPs. This is used for Postgres replication that I was talking about, and this is given to the load balancer. Proceeding further, we'll provide all the 3 node details, short name, FQDN, and the IP address. And then we are good to go ahead and do the deployment. We'll do a pre-check that does the pre-check in 3 different sections: your data validation, infrastructure, and identity manager input validation.
Once we're done with this, we'll go ahead and submit. And what you could see is the deployment of any product is happening in multiple stages. So if there's a problem with a particular stage, it's going to go ahead and stop right there. And then, we can troubleshoot, right? Overall time, it took around 1 hour, 28 minutes. But depending on the environment and the infrastructure, this, the duration might vary. So this is like, now we have our VIDM ready. We have already deployed our LCM. The final product is VRA, right? So any question on VIDM? I think this is pretty straightforward what we did right now, right? So if I go back to Realize Suite, I should be able to see our Workspace ONE instance.
Hey, Pawan.
Yeah. Mhm.
Can you tell us more about the VCF? Like what role VCF is playing here?
Okay, so VCF, as I mentioned, VCF is going to go ahead and automate the deployment of your workload and the management domain. So basically the workload domain. So if you want to go ahead and build up your own SDDC, what's you going to do? You would go ahead and prepare your ESXi host, deploy ESXi host, the preferred version, what you want to go ahead and use. Then you would go ahead and set up, vCenter server, create your network if you're consuming NSX or your VDS network, and then you would go ahead and configure storage, right? All these individual configuration is something that's going to take a lot of time, right? Now, if you want to go ahead and automate the deployment of your infrastructure, right, in a consistent way, which is supported by VMware or it is recommended by VMware, which is VMware validated design. That is where VCF would come into picture. So it's going to go ahead and automate the deployment of your vCenter server, the ESXi hosts, your NSX, and your vSAN. So everything would be configured, and all these products are integrated with each other, right? So that at the end of the deployment, you would have a vCenter instance that has its own vSAN, that has a cluster, and you have vSAN configured, you have NSX configured with edges, and then you can start consuming it from day one, right? So that is where VCF would come into picture. And VCF, if you're integrating Realize Suite with VCF, you would get the power of automation. Let's say that if you want to do the deployment of your VIDM without VCF, what's going to happen is you need to prepare your load balancer. If you're consuming NSX or F5 or any other single arm load balancer, you need to make sure that you configure that manually. With VCF, because VCF is aware of NSX, right? You can talk to NSX manager and use one of the edge to go ahead and deploy your load balancer. So that is one of the stage that VCF does at the back end to automate the deployment of your load balancer for consumption, right? So those are some of the benefits that you get, and there are a lot of benefit by using VCF. Basically, you take out your configuration management issues away because it's automated now.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you're very well explained. Thank you.
All right. How much time do we have now? I think we need to wind up.
You can take another. How much time you need? Yeah,
I think another 5 minutes I should be able to complete.
Would be fine. Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about VRA deployment. And I'm just using the VCF as a platform. But again, as soon as I click on Realize Suite and I do deploy VRA, it's going to take me back to LCM. So LCM asks, what is the certificate that you want to go ahead and use? I'll select my certificate. I'm going to import my certificate. And then I will proceed further with the deployment of VRA. So within the same container, we have multiple Realize Suite products. I'm going to go ahead and deploy VRA. So I'll go ahead and use VRA instance here. And obviously, I'm trying to deploy a cluster. Proceed further. Add your license. The flow would remain the same. There's no difference in the flow, but the way it is doing things at the back end varies, right? We're just trying to go ahead and deploy a 3-node VRA. So you need to make sure that the load balancer is created if you're not using VCF. right? Before you come back here, your load balancer should be ready. So I'm providing the FQDN for my VRA virtual appliance. So basically, this is your cluster VIP given to the load balancer, and your 3 nodes of the VRA would be coming now. Node 1, node 2, and node 3. Do a pre-check, and then proceed further with the deployment. This is pretty straightforward for every product that we have here, right? And you can go ahead and start from a single instance as well. If you want to go ahead and do the single instance deployment, then scale it up to a 3 node, possible. There's no difference. I mean, there's no challenges in that as well. Provided you have done your planning, your infrastructure is ready, your load balancer, your network configuration, your DNS has no issues, right? There are like 10 stages in which it does the deployment. Stage 1 is where it does the load balancer creation and things like that, right? So your deployment is done. I mean, it takes like 1.5 hours out here in my lab. It took around 3 hours of time to go ahead and do the deployment. All right, so I'm going to go switch back to the PPT. We just saw the demo on how exactly we did the deployment using LCM. We have the initial configuration that we go ahead and do the setup. So I just want to see, Prateek, how much time do we have? Do we have another 5 minutes to go through the configuration or not?
Yep.
Because I don't want to rush.
No, would be fine. We can take another 5 minutes.
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk about, let's say that you're done with your deployment and you're logging in for the first time using the config admin account. Yeah, this is where you would be landing, right? So this is just like your administrator vSphere.local account, which is a privileged account. So similarly, you have this config admin account, which is a privileged account. So you get to see all the services as an administrator. As I mentioned, as a cloud administrator, you would be interacting with Cloud Assembly a lot. So you'll click on Cloud Assembly to launch that particular service. And we would be stitching our VRA for consumption. So basically, we need to go ahead and make sure that we add our cloud endpoints. It could be, your private cloud, your public cloud, your hybrid clouds. So let's go ahead and take a look at those options. And if you are new to VRA and you don't know where to start, right, and you don't want to do the quick start, you can follow this, the guided setup, which would guide you what needs to be done next, right? So you perform these steps and you go back to the next step, right? So this guide would be very helpful for someone who's launching it for the first time. All right, types of cloud account, as I mentioned, we have a private data center, a private cloud that we can add. This 8.6 instance, we have Amazon Web Service, Google Cloud Platform, you have Microsoft Azure, NSXT, now became NSX, vCloud Director, VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware Cloud, and AWS. So a hybrid cloud, public cloud, and private cloud. All the combination is available at this one time. You can add these cloud accounts. Obviously, you need subscription and things like that for a multi-cloud option. But based on what you go ahead and configure, you'll be able to consume that. So the first thing is you add whatever cloud account is available for you. I could have shown you another demo which has multiple instances, which is not limited to private data center. But again, you can go back to public clouds as well. The second thing, what you do, sorry.
Yeah. You go ahead, Akshay.
We have multiple cloud providers, let's say AWS, on-prem, hybrid, and I have a workload that was running in AWS or let's say VMC on AWS, and now I want to move it to let's say GCP. Is that feasible?
It's not feasible from VRA at this point of time, but via VMware ARIA automation, it is possible. Right. At this point of time, you're using an external tool in order to go ahead and do the migration. Right. There are tools that are capable of doing the cloud to cloud migration. That capability is not there at this point of time with current version of VRA. But again, VMware ARIA automation, it is possible.
Thank you, Pawan.
Yeah, so it kind of provides you the cost benefits and how much, how securely you're running. So basically, it'll give you an overview of multiple cloud portfolios and where exactly you are more secured, how exactly your application is doing, because you're concerned about your application more than your infrastructure, right? Because that is the point of running, a virtual environment or a multi-cloud environment. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk. Sorry, Pratik, there's a question that you had. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to know, like, you had multiple integrations over there, like VRA can talk to AWS, Azure, Google, and a lot of um, other providers as well. So as soon as you click on any of the provider there, it will ask you for the subscription. And
Yes.
like, let's say you have an existing subscription, you already have workload over there. So how things will look like? Is there any sort of simulation in core.vmware.com wherein we can see that, like, wherein we can see the actual kind of a multi-cloud environment? Like,
I'm just trying to launch one. I'll just show it to you how exactly it look like.
I mean,
I do have
otherwise
an
it's
instance
absolutely
of
okay.
Monica.
We can anyways. I mean, Arya is bringing a lot of other new features as well. So I'll request you to avail yourself once again so that we can do one more session around that. But we can stick to this, no problem.
Sure, absolutely. I will just show it to you how exactly multi-cloud VRA would look like. I've just logged into another instance here. So let me see. I hope this might have some multi-cloud instances that I can show you.
But that core.vmware.com, that's like a very nice simulation. So if anyone wants to start their
Absolutely.
journey with the vRealize automation, I think that should be the first step there.
All right, there we go. So we have some VMware Cloud and AWS, and we have Azure and AWS as well. So this is how you go ahead and add your instances. But if you are doing some native deployment on the cloud instance, those cannot be managed by VRA. So what we do is we deploy and manage the instances of the workload that we initiated from VRA to that particular cloud provider. Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So there's like some of the basic information that you provide and which region that you want to consume and things like that that you need to pay attention to. The next thing what we talk about is in terms of the configuration, you go ahead and configure something called Cloud Zone. So Cloud Zone is nothing but a cluster or a resource pool in your vCenter server or a region when it comes to a public cloud provider. Right? So you go ahead and configure your cluster or the resource pool, which is the compute capacity that you want to go ahead and give it to VRA in order to use. Right? So that is something that we go ahead and configure here. You would understand vCenter better. So that's the reason I'm just showing you vCenter first. So you have multiple resource pools and multiple clusters created here, which is coming from vCenter server as a part of data collection. And we're just consuming them for the deployment. How we are doing this is something that we can talk in the next session maybe, but this is how we are just adding the cloud zones here. And finally, we go ahead and create a project. So project is the topmost entity where we kind of segregate a user group with a particular intent. So if you have IT and if you have HR, two different organizations, a set of users, and they would have different set of blueprints, you would like to go ahead and create two different projects. But if you have an organization where all the users should be able to consume all the services provided by the VRA cloud or VRA on-prem instance, you go ahead and create a single project, right? So that is how the project is created. And in a project, we go ahead and manage. It's the topmost entity. We kind of manage that segregation, put all the cloud zones where we would like to provision our workload and things like that, right? And then you go ahead and provide some flavor mapping, image mapping, network profile, storage profile. We can do a deep dive discussions on these topics, what exactly the cloud template looks like and things like that in more details. But this is something that I want to show. I don't want to overwhelm everyone with a lot of info out here. It might confuse you. So I just want you to consume it slowly and some takeaways from the session, right?
Yeah. So Pawan, is it all UI based or do we do any scripting here, like any YAML coding, things like that?
We have a lot of YAML. We can go back and we can do a lot of things out there. So basically your blueprints are nothing but you'll be writing your infrastructure as a code. As you know that this is VRA 8 is using the blueprint of cloud templates.
using infrastructure as a code, which is YAML language, right?
Mhm.
So if you have all these blueprints, if you click on any of the blueprint, what you see is the YAML code on to the right, right? And
Okay.
this is something that we can discuss in more details in, maybe a blueprint workshop where we talk how exactly we create a blueprint, how do we customize, how do we go ahead and create some user input, some of the regex that we can go ahead and consume. But YAML is something which is easy to consume if you're aware of Python. You just need to pay attention on indentation, nothing else apart from that. Pretty easy to consume. People who are new to YAML and you don't know how this blueprint or how do we read a blueprint, you can go back to properties, inputs, and you can select one of the component out here and you can take a look at what exactly this particular resource is trying to do. So all that good things we can go ahead and discuss in much more details, Prateek. But I thought of like it'll be too much of info that we are pushing in one go, and that's the reason I'm not kind of discussing the blueprints.
Yeah,
Make sense?
definitely.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, this is
This
just
needs
quick
to be
question on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Prateek. Shanna.
Yeah, you should projects here. Does this map to projects on public cloud? Say GCP has projects, and that has.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So our level of segregation is based on the user group, right? Because if you go ahead and have these many blueprints, right, and some of the blueprints are specific to a set of users, if you want to segregate that, you cannot do the segregation on the cloud template level, right? So let's say that if Prateek, Prasanna, and Akshay, they have their own use cases, and Prateek wants to make sure that when Prateek logs in, Prateek should see only these two demo templates, right? He should not be seeing anything else. Then I need to include Prateek as a different part of a different project, right? And then I need to go ahead and create other projects for the other set of people, right? So basically, if you go to a project level, what you see is you go ahead and segregate based on the users. Who are the consumers? What are the roles that they have is something that you define here on the project level. Everything else would remain the same. There's no change.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks.
Yep. No problem. So finally, what I'm trying to do is I thought of like, having a cheat sheet on ARIA automation would be very helpful. So we have this cheat sheet that we would be sharing. I think, Prateek, we will be able to share this cheat sheet with everyone, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this cheat sheet for VMware ARIA automation would be helpful, right? You have some hands-on lab. You have some other material that you can just go through. There's some blog links that you can go ahead and access just to make yourself aware. There's a general keynote session that is available. You can just go through that. I think that'll be helpful. All right. So any questions before we wind up for today?
Yeah. Any questions,
This was good.
anyone?
A silent crowd.
I
Yes,
really enjoyed the session, Pawan. Yeah, and we have seen you in different avatars in last 9 years, 9.5 years. Like you have jumped in different profiles, so different type of customers, different requirements. So, but yeah, this one was really great, and I'm sure people who are keen to expand their portfolio, VRA and ARIA would be the right fit there. And anyways, everyone's going to have their multi-cloud journey there. So if people like me wants to step in that in the journey, so core.vmware.com is where we can start and can do things around that. But yeah, if anyone will have any queries later after the session, I will definitely bring that to you and we can discuss that in the next session.
Sure. So Prateek, what we can do is maybe, we can give a short demo on hands-on lab, maybe next time when we start the session, right? Hands-on
Mhm.
lab is another place where you can get a lot of information readily available for everyone, right? So if we can just show them how we can go ahead and consume hands-on lab, all these things would be available there where you can just go ahead and follow a guide, understand, and then proceed further with doing some lab activities during your learning, right? You're just not reading the PDF or looking at the video, but you're having something to do at the same time. So it's very engaging. Right?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
I've already got few feedbacks saying that they need to have a session. They want to see a session from VMware on the licensing model. So it looks like the licensing model has been changed. So maybe when we'll be doing a kind of a session, hands-on labs, we'll also invite someone else who can explain more around the licensing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Any other question before we go to Akshay, wherein we'll ask him to give us few updates on VMware Explore. All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Pawan. We really wish you luck for your future endeavors, and and we would love to see you again. But this was one of the kind of although the second session for us, but yeah, I'm sure the best session. But we'll do some more sessions, and we'll love to see you presenting again around area. But yeah, now over to Akshay, and Akshay, let me actually you can take the control. You are already a co-host. I just wanted to show your slide there, but yeah.
Thank you, Prateek. So, hi guys, I'm Akshay. I work as a staff engineer with VMware VMC on AWS R&D. I'll first like to thank Pawan for a great session around VRA and how it helps business reach develop their multi-cloud strategy. I've been with VMware for close to around 14 years now, and I've worked with Prasanna, Pawan, Prateek at various times in my career. So I also handled a lot of high touch customers, um, like banking sector customers and some telecom sector customers, right? So as of today, I'm working with the SaaS stack of VMC on AWS, and today I'm going to be telling you about some of the exciting announcements that happened in VM Explore this year. So we have recently, first thing is that we recently, in this year, we have rebranded VM World to VM Explore. So it's the same event, but it is now called VM Explore instead of VM World.
VMware Explore. Okay.
Yeah. VMware Explore. Yes, I'm still getting used to this word. VMware Explore. VMware Explore. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah. So some of the top announcements that happened in VMware Explore this year around was around vSphere 8. So we released vSphere 8, and we have the hands-on labs available for vSphere 8 that you guys can try. Then we also had an announcement around vSphere Plus, which gives you an ability to connect your on-prem instance to cloud and consume some of the assisted services like lifecycle management of VC, right? And then we had announcements around ARIA automation, project monitoring, and some announcements about network and security stuff, right? So if you really want to understand what these announcements were and how they help you with your business strategy, I'll just share my screen and I'll show you some. So there are like 8 keynotes around these announcements that happened in VMware Explore. I'll suggest you to go through all of these keynotes. These will provide you very good and interesting insights about how your business strategy can consume these new products and how they make your life easier and accelerate your multi-cloud journey, right? In addition to these 8 keynotes, so these are right here on the VMware Explore website. Like, I hope you can see that, right? So these are the solution keynotes. In addition to these solution keynotes, we have a bunch of very technical and deep dive topics available on the video library, right? You can select your product from this drop down and then the level, right? For technical folks, I'll suggest that you go through technical 200 and 300 articles around the product of your choice, right? Let's say you want to talk about Carbon Black. You want to learn more about VMware Carbon Black, right? So you can select that product and go through technical 200 or 300 topics, though we don't have any in this section, but there are. What happened here? Why is it not showing?
Yeah, search for vSphere 8.
Yeah. So we have around 134 L200 and L300 technical sessions, right? So you can put a keyword here or select a product here. vSphere 8, I guess you wouldn't have as a product, but it will be we realize we sometimes power CLI, the rest is for access.
There was a session on VMware Success 360 as well.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes, right. So yeah, so vSphere 8 as such, you don't have a keyword there, but vSphere 8 was only a keynote topic, but there's no L200, 300 sessions for vSphere 8 this time around. They might be there next time around, but we do have HOLs available for vSphere 8. So if you go to HOL, you will be able to access vSphere 8 demos there, right? And if you really want to look on for business strategy and how these announcements and how you should integrate the new capabilities that VMware is bringing on, right? I'll suggest you to go through Business 200 videos, right? You can see like there are like 41 Business 200 videos, and you can just sort it by most viewed. So this is what the world is watching, and to align their business strategy and understand how what VMware is delivering can help accelerate their journey. So that's about VMworld this time around. If you have any questions, if you have any specific asks around what videos I should watch for a specific product, you can let me know and I can recommend few videos.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Akshay. That was really nice, actually. So the way this portal has been designed, it's quite handy. So if someone's like looking for some information around NSX, just search for that, and you will get all relevant information around NSX. And yeah, that's nice. And people who were not able to attend VMware Explore this time, last time it was virtual, so a lot of people actually attended the event, but being in person, very few of us got that opportunity to be there. But we have actually someone with us. His name is Jatin Purohit from Pune. He was part of VMUG Pune earlier, and I'm sure he's still contributing there. But he has bit of an announcement for us regarding a UserCon happening in India. So Jatin, if you're there, I would request you to take the control and tell us more about that UserCon.
Thanks, Prateek, and thanks, Pawan. That was a great session. In fact, I work for VMware, and some of the things that you have shared around vRealize were actually new to me as well. So thanks for doing a great session. And thanks everyone for having me over here. I'm actually part of VMware technical marketing team, looking after VMware Cloud. So I actually work on the hyperscaler solutions. So for example, VMC on AWS is one of the hyperscaler solution. That's where Akshay belongs to. But I actually work on a specific solution that is Oracle Cloud VMware solution. But the whole idea about all of these hyperscaler solution is to give you the ability to actually build and deploy your VMware SDDC environment to any public cloud of your choice. Before working for the VMware Cloud team, I was part of the vSphere technical marketing team. I was pretty much looking after the core vSphere stack, vCenter, ESXi, Lifecycle Manager, all the things related to Power CLI and APIs. So that's where my bandwidth was going into most of the time. So that's about me. I'm part of the VMUG leadership team. I'm the VMware point of contact for VMUG Pune. VMUG Pune is one of the I would say one of the earlier chapter that we have started in India, and I'm happy to share that this is one of the chapter that has successfully hosted events in each and every quarter for last 3 years. We have hosted around 15 plus events, physical as well as the virtual. So we do have a quite strong community, and personally, I would like to see, and I would like to associate with Chandigarh VMUG as well, because now we are all virtual, we are all connected through Zoom. So it doesn't really matter whether I'm from Pune, Chandigarh, Delhi, Bangalore, or even any part of India. So that's really great. I would love to see you guys hopping into VMUG Pune sessions, and we will keep sharing all these session details with you. The announcement that I have to make is around India UserCon. This is the largest VMUG event that happens in India. This is our second consecutive VMUG virtual UserCon that we are hosting this time. Last year, when we hosted this particular event, we had around 16 sessions, and we had around 350 participants from 400 or 500 registrations. So far, as of today, we have registration which is crossing across 250 participants as of today, and we would love to see this participation going beyond 300 and 350 plus. So I would really encourage you all to go there and register for the India UserCon. Let me quickly share a couple of slides. I won't take much time from you guys, but I will quickly show you the registration link, and also the session details that you guys would be interested in. So I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
Are you able to see?
Yep.
Perfect. So it's happening on 22nd September. We have named this event as India Virtual UserCon, and we would love to see participation across all the India communities. It's a virtual event, so you will be logging into a virtual portal, which is with the details of which you will get once you register. We also have giveaways of 50K INR. We will be distributing Amazon vouchers depending on certain criteria. That is something you will get to know once you register for the event. So go ahead and register for the event, and I will share the registration link in the chat so that you can check out the event details. The interesting thing is, if you see the session tracks over here, from security, from cloud migration, Power CLI, REST APIs, one of my favorite track. Then also you can see vSphere and vSAN Plus sessions listed over here. So we have around 16 sessions, including the keynote. So be there and pick and choose the session that you want to join in, and be there and have a conversation with all your peers and leaders. So that's about the UserCon, and I hope to see all of you at the India UserCon, and excited to see your contribution over there as well. Let me stop this screen sharing, and let me see if there are any questions. Meanwhile, I get the registration link for all of you.
So Jatin, is it like a whole day event?
Hold, yeah.
Yes, so it starts from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So it's around 3-4 hours event, and we do have the event details and the registration link so that you can understand which session is happening at what time, and you can basically pick and choose which session you want to join in. So this is the registration link that I have shared in the chat, and you can go ahead and register yourself.
Yeah, definitely we have to pick and choose. 9 to 12 would be too less to sort of see all the sessions.
Yeah.
So you can max watch like 3 to 4 sessions there.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
thanks a lot, Jatin, and I'm sure people who are keen will definitely avail this opportunity. And I haven't registered yet, so I'll just go ahead and register today, and I'll see you there on 22nd.
Sure.
All right. Thanks a lot. I'll take the control back and share my screen. So I missed this presentation. Akshay Kalia, he has already presented. So sorry, Akshay, I was unable to present that earlier. Thanks to everyone, Pawan, Akshay, Prasanna, Jatin, everyone for your inputs here. And just one quick update here. I actually shared this presentation in the last session as well. So 2020 is when we attended the Leader Summit. And I think, Jatin, that was the time when I first met you at the Leader Summit.
That's correct. That's correct.
San Francisco. Yeah. So it's happening again. And I'll be catching up with the other leaders from across the world. It's happening in December. And it's happening in Lisbon this time, Portugal, and great opportunity to be with like-minded people, and you get to know what's happening in other communities as well. So why I'm showing this to you here, like if you're interested to be a VMUG member and you have something in your in your bucket that, hey, I want to be VMUG leader at some stage, I would. I would suggest you to join one of the community, whether it's VMUG Pune, VMUG Auckland, or VMUG Chandigarh, whatever. But associate yourself with a VMUG community, and down the line, you can get a chance to be a VMUG leader as well. So VMUG leader has, I mean, you have to be a member first of all to understand how they're operating things, and then you can definitely come up as a leader as well. So if you have any uh, things planned for your career growth itself, to become a leader, like do some volunteer service here, definitely that's the place to go. So that's something happening this time in Lisbon, and I'll see whom I can catch. I'm already catching up with one of the VMUG leader from Auckland. His name is Sanit. So definitely we'll see a lot of familiar faces there. So that's it. And as discussed earlier, we are giving our VMUG Advantage Pass to Sushil Kumar for his participation and for asking relevant questions to us in the last session. Sushil Kumar is from SN Cloud Solutions, and we really wish him luck. And there are a few advantage opportunities which he can avail, and I'm sure Sushil will make best of it. So that's it for today. But before we go, if anyone has any questions or any queries, you guys can contact us to me, Prasanna or Akshay, at any stage. These are our LinkedIn and Twitter handles. And hey, Prasanna, if you have a quick minute, can you please share the new Twitter handle for VMUG Chandigarh as well? That would be quite nice to see. Or tell me,
I'll get that.
just
It's
because
just at VMUG Chandigarh, at VMUG Chandigarh.
Okay, cool. At VMUG Chandigarh. Okay, we'll anyways share more details around that. But if anyone's keen to stay connected, and I would request actually everyone to stay connected with us with VMUG Chandigarh. So VMUG Chandigarh, hashtag VMUG Chandigarh is the Twitter handle, and we'll definitely see you there. And we are trying to bring up some awesome sessions in next month. It could be around artificial intelligence or machine learning, could be something else, but we are actually exploring our options here. So we'll see you soon next month with a new session. Anyone has any queries, we can stay for some more time, but otherwise, all the best, and we'll see you again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Pawan.
Everyone.
Special thanks to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers, man.